Let's just dive right into this explainer, because today we're unpacking a truly terrifying investigation. We're looking at a case that completely blurred the line between local folklore and a deadly reality. It's about a series of chilling events that unfolded right near a colony on Narsinghpur Road.
But before we map out the timeline and all the crazy mechanics of what actually happened, I want you to ask yourself a question. What would you do if you looked in the mirror and your shadow was just standing still? I know, it sounds crazy, but this isn't some hypothetical scenario. This is exactly the nightmare that happened to a crime journalist named Raghav. He stepped into a mystery and found something way worse than your standard criminal.
Act 1. The setup. So, it all started with a string of sudden, completely unexplained disappearances in a colony near Narsinghpur Road. People were literally just vanishing into the night. Well, Raghav was looking for clues, and he managed to get his hands on a crucial piece of evidence. At exactly 2:17 a.m., CCTV footage captured a man walking alone. Suddenly, he stops. He panics, and then he makes a fatal mistake. He looks behind him. Instantly, this unseen force just pounces on his shoulders, and the camera goes completely blank. That's when Raghav realized he had found the common thread linking these missing people. It was a shadowy attack, and it was triggered by the simple act of looking back.
While Raghav was reviewing this footage, an elderly widow named Shakila Appa approached him and gave him a chilling warning. She basically told him he was completely on the wrong track. He wasn't hunting a human serial killer at all. He was hunting a dedh futiya. Now what is that? It translates to a 1.5-foot entity. It's described in folklore as an incomplete soul or a child jinn that possesses 100 times the physical strength of a normal human being. Let that sink in for a second.
She laid out a really specific, horrifying set of traits for this thing. It's about 1.5 feet tall, has a half-burnt face, and pitch-black eyes without any pupils. It hunts by mimicking the voices of children or your loved ones, just to trick you into turning around. But the absolute craziest detail is how it feeds. It doesn't eat flesh. It actually feeds by consuming human shadows. And the horrifying part? Once it eats your shadow, you slowly rot and deteriorate from the inside out.
Act 2. The Rules of the Jinn.
You see, everything in the supernatural realm operates on a specific set of rules. And to understand how Raghav fought back, we need to look at how rapidly this threat escalated. On night 1, the first residents disappear. By night 3, Raghav is deeply involved, he's found the footage and he's gotten Shakila Appa a warning. But, refusing to believe it was just a myth, he decides to walk the empty streets himself on night 4 right at 2 a.m. And in the dead silence, he hears a child's voice calling him Bhaiya, which means brother. Despite all the warnings he got, human instinct kicks in. He looks back.
Instantly, the creature lunges, landing directly on Raghav's chest and crushing his breath. Desperate to survive, he suddenly remembers a piece of Shakila Appa's lore. Jinns are repelled by iron. So he grabs an iron key from his pocket and stabs at the creature. The monster shrieks and retreats. But it's a hollow victory. The creature actually succeeded in stealing his shadow. Raghav is now marked for that slow, rotting death.
Act 3. The Human Greed.
Now, as we often find in these types of investigations, the most terrifying monsters aren't always supernatural. On one side, sure, you have this horrifying shadow-eating jinn. But on the other side, you have the actual architects of this nightmare. And they were completely human. A greedy real estate builder and a practitioner of dark magic, a tantric. This entire supernatural threat was actually manufactured by human greed.
So, how did this conspiracy actually work? Well, the tantric summoned the dedh futiya for one specific reason, to terrorize the colony's residents. Why? So that the builder could swoop in and buy up all that prime real estate for absolute pennies once everyone fled in terror. And it gets even darker. You see, Raghav wasn't attacked by random chance. He was specifically targeted so that his newspaper would broadcast the story and validate the panic for them. Plus, Shakila Appa revealed that her own husband was the very first victim, murdered just to keep this entire real estate plot a secret. Raghav realizes he's been played. He was just a pawn in a brutal land grab.
Act 4. Possession and Sacrifice.
Okay, so Raghav decides to take a stand. He faces the jinn in a ruined building using an iron circle to banish it, and he actually thinks he's won. But the dedh futiya wasn't destroyed. It was looking for a home, and it chose Raghav as its living host.
The symptoms of this possession were just horrific. Raghav wakes up entirely paralyzed, feeling this heavy, freezing presence on his chest. Soon, his body literally starts burning from the inside. His limbs physically twist, his voice distorts, and he starts emitting this foul graveyard stench. But honestly, the most terrifying part? Raghav looks at a wall, and his own shadow isn't laying flat. It starts standing up on the wall like a 3-year-old child, and it actually mimics choking him.
Barely holding on to his sanity, Raghav remembers another vital piece of lore from Shakila Appa. She told him, a jinn is not a soul, but a child of fire and smoke. To extinguish it, one must burn. And that's when the terrifying realization hits him. The only way to destroy the entity and stop this corruption is to completely destroy the host body itself, his own body.
Driven by the absolute last shred of his humanity, right before the monster completely takes over his mind, Raghav tracks down the corrupt tantric and the greedy builder. They're hiding out, celebrating their big success at an abandoned leather factory on the outskirts of the city, literally sitting near an open fire pit and these giant acid tanks.
Raghav crashes their little celebration right as the jinn is fully taking over his physical form. But he uses the monster's own supernatural speed against the conspirators, and he grabs the tantric right by the throat. Battling the jinn for control of his own vocal cords, he screams, "If this body is your home, I will destroy it."
So here is exactly how he pulled off this final, heroic attack. Step 1, he breaks the tantric's physical control over the area and starts a massive fire in the factory. Step 2, knowing the jinn might try to just escape his smoke, Raghav wraps his own torso in heavy iron chains. This effectively locks the creature inside of him. And finally, step 3, he throws himself directly into the burning acid tank. The iron chains ensured the entity couldn't flee before the massive explosion wiped them all out.
Act 5. The Aftermath. The morning after the explosion, the police arrive to find nothing but ashes. There's no trace of Raghav, the builder, or the tantric. And, as is so often the case when the truth is just too bizarre or terrifying to comprehend, the authorities file it away neatly. The police report officially attributes the explosion at the factory to a simple, tragic gas leak, and they close the case. The human threat was gone, and peace did eventually return to Narsinghpur. But the supernatural truth? That was buried forever in a mundane police file.
Well, or so everyone thought. Months go by, and the colony is peaceful. A new night watchman is on duty. But suddenly, out of the darkness, he hears this thin, childlike voice say, "Bhaiya, yaha bahut andhera hai, thodi si roshni hogi kya?" Which translates to, "Brother, it's very dark here. Is there any light?" The watchman turns around, but he doesn't see a thing. However, the CCTV footage tells a completely different story. Right behind the watchman, a 1.5-foot shadow is clearly visible, waving directly at the camera. Raghav is gone. The tantric is dead. And what that means is the dead futiya actually survived the fire, and now it has no master. It is completely free, roaming around without a tether. And that brings us to the end of our explainer today. But I want to leave you with one final, terrifying question to think about. If someone calls you from behind tonight, are you going to look back?